Hello and welcome back to the Full Fat Podcast with me, Matt, your faithful host, and Mr. Chevalier, and we have a new third. We liked his vibe over in the bar, so we asked him to be our third. And it's you may recognise him from your favourite film is Awful. It's Mr. Luke Powell. I mean, Mr. Sean Grimsley. It's Luke the Conqueror, Luke the Alpha, Luke the Sigma.
Yep, that's
what you'd say, isn't it? I said that like he's dead. Like, that's what he would say, wouldn't he?
We've got to bring him on
for
a guest.
God, we miss him so much.
Luke. Really.
I should bring him on as a guest.
Guys,
that would be fun. Yeah. You know, I'll have to
not
give him
Luke
a
Powell
bell.
because I've got a few years on him. I don't know how you guys can see with these glasses on. I got to take them off. I'm too old. My eyes don't see.
Oh, but we all got matching glasses like we're in Top Gun, you know?
Obi-wan Kenobi.
Exactly.
Oh, no, terrible.
I've grown up with him. I'm Alec Guinness of the group.
That's brilliant.
Oh. Well, in the interest of diversity, obviously, we've lost our female member. Now we have 3 white guys with beards and similar haircuts, you know. So I think, you know, we're doing really well in terms of hitting every demographic, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm bringing up that Top Gun Maverick demographic. That's what I'm here for. My people
the 35s and over, yeah.
I mean, what a ride.
Oh. Well, I don't think there's any point wasting time this week. Let's jump right into episode 3, Kenobi. I'm going to go out on a limb and say mid. Sean, Charlie. Sean first. What did you think?
As you know, Matthew, I saw it before you did. And it took me. I nearly spilled some beans on my thoughts, but yeah, agreement with you. Mid tier. Couple of good moments, couple of bad chasing a child through the forest moments yet again. But yeah, mid tier.
Mm-hmm. Did you do that often?
I'm Deborah Chow. Mid tier for me. Mid tier.
Mr. Chazza.
You guys are more forgiving than I am. I didn't like it. I mean, I think you're right. I think it's mid, but I'm just done with trying to apologise for him. Really, I don't know. I just think this should have been. I can't help but think this should have been a movie. I think it's weird that I'm watching Darth Vader in shaky cam, like we're in like a bloody mumblecore movie. And he's just walking around to some desert, and I just feel like there's no weight to it. There's no weight to it anymore. I don't know what's happened. I don't get it. I think there's some cool ideas in the show, but it's just lost a lot of like oomph. I don't know what it is.
I mean, I do think the big thing with this week's episode was the return of Darth Vader, right? And it's we want that to be iconic, and it's just like it was a subpar version of the best scene in Rogue One.
Yeah.
You can see the only Rogue One, but I don't know.
That's a whole other podcast.
I'm going to get some angry comments from that Ewan Callister guy. Oh my god. Every single week. Yeah, shout out to Ewan. Can't wait for you to comment.
That's his screen name.
Yeah, like, you've been waiting 2 decades for this, and you don't like it? Well, I'm going to bloody type, aren't I? I think mid can sometimes be worse than downright awful. Like when I came out of Morbius, I thought, wow, that's one of the worst things I've ever seen, like incomprehensibly bad. And for that reason, I'm glad I saw it. Whereas this, I'm kind of like sleepwalking through it. We're already 3 episodes in. We're past the halfway mark now. And, you know, as you both said, like, there's been some good moments. I thought some of the dialogue between young Leia and Kenobi was really nice. And I think, you know, Ewan McGregor is not phoning it in.
He is.
He's given a pretty cool performance, and I like that he's not doing all the quipping, hello there stuff. Like, he's very dour. It feels right for the context of the time that he's in. But then the rest of it is just feels very filler. It feels like we're spending half the episode waiting to get to Vader, and then when it finally gets there, I don't think it goes nearly as hard as it could have. And that lightsaber duel was
it's not there.
A bit shocking.
I couldn't agree more there.
Yeah, yeah. It's just finally we see him strike up a lightsaber, and it's to use it as a torch for the first time, and it's like, come on now.
Yeah, and there was just no like the film language. I feel like could push that more as a moment. Like when he finally ignites it. Like and it's weird. It's inconsistent because the first episode I thought really earned that moment when he when you see it on his hip and it's like, oh shit, like that's the first time we've seen it on him. So when he sparks it up, that's gonna be a big moment. But he's just running around with this floaty camera work as Vader sort of like pops up when convenient. Also, what I really didn't like about that finale is like it's not a set piece. Like, what's the geography of that place? Like, where is Vader popping out of? And like it just feels like they're in.
It's like you said,
the
the language,
nowhere.
the film language of Star Wars has completely been lost in these TV shows. Like there was a very distinct film language that Star Wars had in terms of the way they were shot. I feel like they don't even do the swipes anymore. Do you know what I mean? There's like things like that they just they're not doing. Like, I don't know, do you know what I mean? That's not a big deal, but it's lost that. It just feels like any other show, but it's Star Wars. And I agree, Matt. I think like this is the first time we've seen Vader since Rogue One. And he, it started off like, okay, this is cool. We can see him from afar. He's dragging people along. This is a good way to do it. And then it just slowly loses weight. All of a sudden, it's now just a dude in a. It just some of it just felt a bit fan filmy to me. Like they're just standing around the desert screen, and there's no real impact on, like you said, Matt, when he draws that lightsaber. There's no like tension built up with the editing or anything to build up to that moment of that's a big fucking deal that Obi-Wan and Darth Vader are fighting each other. We always thought they never fought after that until New Hope. This is a big fucking deal, and it didn't hold the weight of that scenario. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird as well, like in terms of the pacing across with pretty much all these Disney Plus shows, and we're starting to find a real sticking point in episode 3 that kind of makes or breaks them. I thought episode 3 of Moon Knight really kind of bulldozed the goodwill I had from the first 2 episodes, and it's kind of the same again here. But I think it's also it's weird. Like I was saying to you, Charlie, because obviously we saw it together. That if it was a 2-hour movie, I wouldn't be worried about how much we're going to get out of, in terms of the mileage of Vader, seeing Obi-Wan again. Whereas we've got 6 hours, so theoretically you'd think, oh, well, we've got more time, so we're going to go into it even deeper. But instead what we get is like last week's episode, if that was in a 2-hour movie of Kenobi, that would have been a 10-minute sequence of them in that city planet, and Kumail Nanjiani would have popped up, and it would have kept the pace rolling to get to Vader within the first hour of the script. Whereas here, I just feel like we're plodding in the 3rd hour, and we've only really touched upon Vader, and now we're past the midpoint. It's just like, what? I don't know. It's just strange, isn't it? It's like we've got more time, but I feel like less ends up happening. Like, did we really need to see Leia and Kenobi go on that bus ride?
I mean, yes,
to get
we
to
did.
the plot.
In
a movie that would be 5 minutes.
How else are we going to get Zach Braff into the Star Wars canon? Come on, this is the important stuff.
Yeah, who was Zach Braff?
Well, the internet.
Who was Zach Braff?
I don't think anyone's confirmed it yet, but everyone's saying he was like the Seth Rogen sounding mole man.
Oh, that would make sense.
Freck? Was it Freck or Freck?
Yeah, because we saw him pop up in the credits and we were like, what the fuck? We saw him pop up in the credits and we were both like, oh, what? Zach Braff was in this?
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah, I could agree more. I just think like we're like you said, we're in the 3rd episode, and we're going on a stroll with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and like this stuff wouldn't be in the film. Like you said, it would be cut. It would be cut because there's no time to waste. We got to get to what the story is about, and I think that's what's missing with all this. And I think like there's a little moments of like time where they say things like the dialogue when he said, "Oh, I was taken away from my parents when I was young," and stuff. And I was like, oh, here we go. Here's something we can explore. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, we don't know much about his past. Come on, let's do something. And then, it just... I don't know. It's just... I don't know.
It's all very piecemeal, isn't it, with these Disney Plus shows? It's like, we'll give you a little bit of something good, a little bit of something with some effort behind it, a charming idea or a cool concept, and then we're going to tread water for a little bit longer, and then you get something else cool. Like, for example, I think it's a great idea that Vader sparks up the
Yeah,
floor and
that's
he's
a
like, right, now
brilliant
you're going to
idea.
fucking burn. But then it just doesn't
But
quite
I think
deliver.
that's the geography of the space. It's just like it's a great idea, but you look at the way it's shot and the way that they've designed it, and it just doesn't feel like it's just like, wait, why is he just letting this happen? It doesn't feel earned or that there's any threat. It's not like in episode 3 where it's just like there's literally nowhere else these two can go. It's not. It almost seems. It almost undermines the coolness of the idea by designing it in such a poor way.
Also, where's Obi-Wan Kenobi going when he keeps like ducking out the way, where Vader can't just like zoop? Do you know what I mean? Like what? So Vader's just walking around and Kenobi's going like jumping out the way and then like jumping back in again. Like it's so weird. And
you need it to be like the end. You need it to be like the end of Heat. Like you've got your reds, you've got your blue, and you need the geography, and you need him getting to like the port so he can get off the planet. So there's a ticking clock with it, and instead it's literally just like them walking around the industrial state in Greenwich.
Yeah.
It's awful. As well, the Inquisitors I thought were quite an interesting thread in the first 2 episodes, and I liked what they're doing with Reva in terms of the plot, in that she is, you know, trying to rise up the ranks. We're seeing the Inquisitors from her perspective. She's kind of like a secondary lead in that sense. And then in this episode, I feel like they've completely dissolved into the background. They're just there to launch the drones, to tell Vader where to go, and then they literally just sort of stand there whilst, you know, now that Vader's here, it's like, oh, we don't give a shit about these guys anymore. Fuck them. Vader's here now. This is what you really wanted to see. And that, again, just begets a movie to me, because in a movie, they probably wouldn't even be in it, or they'd have a very minimal role, because, you know, you need to save that time well, and it would have been just about, you know, like with Heat, it's Pacino and De Niro. There's other characters, like, you know, like Val Kilmer's character, but it really rests on that relationship. And that's why it's such a good movie. I mean, I say such a good movie, it's... oh my lord. What a picture. Like, and I just think it's just really lacking. I feel like we're constantly resting the scales from like what we want the show to be focused on. Do we want it to be about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Leia? Do we want it to be about Vader and Obi-Wan? Do we want it to be about the Inquisitors? Like, even characters like Joel Edgerton, you know, I'm like, oh great, one of the best pieces of casting from the prequels, and he's back. Let's do something cool with him. He gets one good scene, and now he's dissolved into the background as well.
There's obviously potential that he'll come back towards the back end of the show, but again, it's like you're having all these scenes with the Inquisitors, like having their disagreements, but it's like, you know that she's just going to kill you, guy. Like, that's inevitably where this is going, I know this already, so why am I wasting my time with these scenes for it, when that's not what I want the focus of the show to be about? We've got 3 episodes left. I'm starting to. It's gonna, like, next week's really gonna make or break whether this has been a success or not, because you know.
I feel like it's already kind of. I don't want to be negative in terms of like we've got time. Like, you know, if the next 3 episodes are fire, then it could save it. But at the same time, I've said that before. I've been down this road before, these Disney Plus shows. You know, I was the exact same with Moon Knight. And then it got to episode 4, and I was like, you know what? That's
how I feel about it.
This.
That's why I said to John, you guys said it's mid. Yeah, like, I do agree with you. I do think it is mid. I'm probably being harsh, but I'm just so fed up with it. You know what I mean? It's just it's everything that they've been delivering on these TV shows as of recent have been so mid. Like we were saying after we watched it, like we watched Peacemaker. When Peacemaker ended every episode, we were like, oh man, it's finished. Like, I need next week. When's next week coming? Whereas this, I'm like, oh, they've captured Leia again. Oh, great. Like, they've. You know what I mean, how many times? It's not interesting. It's not on the edge of my seat.
And I think it exposes the problem with these Disney Plus shows, in that they're trying to make them 6-hour movies, but they don't look good enough to be movies, and they're not good enough to be TV, because like Peacemaker looks way worse than this show. It looks like TV, but because it's paced and structured around the fact it's episodes, you get so much bang for your buck each week. You leave the end of each episode like, oh my god, what's just happened? What's going to happen next? Like, the ending cliffhanger to this week is just, Kenobi got a little bit burnt up, and now he's escaped. Vader's going to hunt him again, and Reva's got Leia, but it's like, well, Leia's been captured a couple of times, so like, and you know, we know she's gonna get back home. So is it really like that much of a revelation for that to happen?
There's very little tension in any of the sequences, and I think that's ultimately always a problem with prequels, where you know that legacy characters will survive them, but you have to find ways to make that interesting, and I don't think that they've particularly done that in this show.
I don't think it helps that something like Top Gun Maverick is in cinemas right now, which is delivering on a really awesome theatrical experience, both audio and visual. But also, like, because the script is well constructed, even though, spoilers if you haven't seen it yet, and also what are you doing? Stop watching this podcast, go and see it. No one dies in the final mission, which on paper sounds insane, but because they do such a good job of making you think that this mission is so impossible and it is so insanely difficult for them to all come home, that when they do all come home, it's just an epic relief.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's figuring out what the audience expect to happen and subverting it in a way that you don't know whether they're going to deliver on it or not deliver on it, but making sure that the emotional stakes are in place, that whatever happens, you feel something and it makes you enjoy the experience of being alive and getting to experiences.
But it's the thing, like,
I think that's exactly it.
100%. I think he nailed it. I was just going to say, like, I think that's exactly the problem with Kenobi is it's the filmmaking. I think even if we were sitting here and we had the same script, but that tension in that last scene was shot the way, like, Top Gun Maverick, where the way it's edited together is so tense. Like, the film, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you take the script out and you just put that scene itself, just the way it's cut together, is like a phenomenally tense scene that you don't even need to see the rest of the movie to know that this is tense. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas, like, if I showed the Kenobi stuff, it's like, there's, like you said, Sean, there's no tension. It's not, none of the shots are building on the next one. They're not using the language of film to stretch that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a angle here, and then there's a funny angle of him looking for his lightsaber that's really awkward and weird. And we hadn't seen it before in the show, so there's no setting that up. You know what I mean? It's just like let's just do this shot. It just was very coveragey and TV. And like you said, Matt, the fact that it's this weird middle ground where they think it's a 6-hour movie, but it's not that, and it's not quite a TV show. So it's kind of this weird. Yeah, no, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
And even The Mandalorian, for all of its faults, in that first season, it's a TV show. Each week we get a monster of the week, essentially. We get a new premise. And the episodes of The Mandalorian that really work are the ones that feel the most like TV. Like, we really like The Prisoner. That's a little contained adventure where they got to get in, get out, a little heist. Or the first episode of season 2 where they've got to take down the Krayt Dragon. Like, that's a beginning to end story in of itself. You meet Cobb Vanth. You find out a lot about Cobb Vanth. Cobb Vanth goes on a journey. Like, they establish a friendship. You feel like you get something within that episode. Whereas doing this kind of long form storytelling over 6 hours just results in, like, you just sort of forget what's happened. Like, oh yeah, Flea was in it at one point, I guess. Literally. And Rupert Friend was about at one point, Oh yeah, Joel Edgerton who? Like,
Evermore, Leia will have been kidnapped by someone at Slap at the Base. It's just... But I think your point about like the idea of just all of the shows and like across the Disney selection now, I don't get excited about watching them in the way that I want to, like where I have to see it. It's always a thing of, and because they seem to be dropping them on a Wednesday now, it's just like, oh yeah, well, if that's something to do with on my train journey this Wednesday evening, or I don't even feel like I need to watch it on my big screen television. Like, that's how little investment of like of respect I have for it almost.
But that's where it comes into being content. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just being fed this stuff. There's no ceremony to it, and also it's deflating. Like, Sean, when we saw Maverick, it was your first time, wasn't it?
First time in
I'd seen
cinema.
it once before. Like, we've gone to see a few things recently where it's kind of had that deflating feeling, stuff like Moonfall or whatever. And like, I just thought it was such a joyous experience because you were literally like cackling with excitement next to me, and I was fucking loving it. And like, you know, like when the jets finally like went off the carrier for the final mission, you were literally like, and it's like, yes, like this is fun. This is making me feel happy. This is giving me what I desire from spectacle. And then I think when you watch something like that and you realise how happy it makes you, and then you come and watch something like this, it just makes it all the more apparent. Like I'm not that excited for next week now. Like it'll come to Wednesday.
And this is
and
the
I'll be
thing,
like,
we're not
oh,
the biggest Top Gun fans. We're Star Wars fans. But yet we're sitting here going, this Top Gun movie gave us more what we wanted than fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi, by the way, guys. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV show. How is that not the greatest thing we ever saw? You know?
When they announced, way back when now, when they announced that Disney had bought Lucasfilm, you know, this was the thing that everybody wanted.
Yeah.
And now it's here. I mean, it's for me. It's still the one that I want to work the most, and I think that says something to like how we care about the character. I also think it's the one that has somehow the responsibility of doing the most heavy lifting, but has the freedom to not worry so much about doing the heavy lifting because we're already invested. Yet somehow in all of that, they found a way just to feel like they're treading water, and I don't know. I do think with these shows, and I thought it with Falcon and Winter Soldier, I do think it lies a little bit with the direction. Like, I do think that some 100%. Of the choices that they're making, you know, for all of the flaws of taking really good independent filmmakers and giving them properties that Marvel do, you know, I think they do a much better job of finding the right people. You know, up until Chloe Zhao, I don't think they got it especially terribly wrong. Like, I don't think they were far off the mark. Whereas I do think the shows haven't nailed it, and I mean that across Marvel and Star Wars as well. I'm talking about Disney generally. I just think that they've been really odd with their choices, and that's not to say that, you know, Deborah Chow is a bad filmmaker by any means, but I feel like she's lacking that thing that we need, that we desire to see, that seems so obvious to someone that's just like, this is the first time he's using his lightsaber. Like, why is that not an iconic shot from the ground up? Like, it's just obvious. It doesn't make any sense.
I think these directors just kind of dissolve into the projects. Like Benson and Moorhead on Moon Knight, the 4th episode, I think that they directed the 4th episode. There was a few moments of genuine horror, which I thought were really well put together. And I thought, oh, that's I can see Benson and Moorhead in that, but it's just little flashes. Like you watch an actual feature from them, and their voice comes out tenfold. And then, you know, like, you know, so that as much as, you know, I'm happy for them getting that bag with Loki season 2, getting that dollar, but at the same time, you know, how much of them are
they were talking
are
about
be
this last night, weren't they? Like, we went to a screening of one of their movies last night, and they were there, and they were talking about how you bring enough of yourself to it, but recognise that for a large scale audience, you have to kind of like make concessions on who you are. And I'm just like, I don't feel like, and I'm talking more specifically about this show now, I don't feel like we're making any concessions on who the director is. I feel like we're making concessions on what the fans want to see, because it's become diluted between corporate interest and I'm not even sure what. Like, I don't. It feels like there's been a loss of integrity somewhere, and I don't know where that. I've got a theory to where that buck stops, but I think it's the same theory everybody has.
Yeah.
It's lost its class.
I'm just fed up. Just fed up of it, and it's sad because it's like, you know, we love genre stuff. You know, we loved watching the MCU when it was 2 movies a year, but that's easier to focus on. You know what I mean? Like 2014, it's the Russos, James Gunn. It's like, right, okay, we can zero in on these 2 distinct types of movies. One's like a space opera. One's a more down-to-earth action movie. Whereas now it's like, what? How many things came out last year? Like 10 different things, and half of them are series, which are multiple parts. And some of them, like, you know, the directors are just jumping in and out. Like, I think WandaVision had the same director
Matt Shackman,
for the whole thing.
Matt Shackman,
was it Matt Shackman? Yeah. But then, you go to Moon Knight, and that had 3 different directors. And then, like, Kate Herron isn't coming back for Loki season 2, so it's like, well, how integral was she to that in the eyes of Marvel? It's just, I don't. It doesn't have any kind of
authorship. Yeah, authorship. Exactly
authorship.
That. Hey, jinx.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 3 straight white men talking about the Alter theory. You heard this one, but we know you don't.
Strap in.
We don't care, and that's our privilege.
Good morning, aviators. Are you having fun yet?
This seems like a good time for me to say I've actually got to go. I'm really sorry. I'm pressed for time here.
That's absolutely fine. And in fact, I think we should wrap it up because we've only got a couple of minutes left. And I think we've pretty much said all we need to say about this week's Kenobi.
Unfortunately.
Should we wrap up with some closing thoughts? I would just say that there's still something to play for. I still think we're going to get some good character out of Kenobi and particularly out of Vader, and I hope Hayden Christensen gets more to do. But it's it's not looking good, bro. It's not looking good.
Perfect.
Magnificent. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm still going to be tuning in as soon as I can on those Wednesdays, mostly for fear of spoilers. But I want to believe that Ewan McGregor has signed onto this project knowing that there's something here that will stay lasting in our minds. For me, it hasn't quite happened yet, but I want to remain optimistic that it does. And if it doesn't fulfill on that, that's when I really truly think this show will be a disappointment. For me, it started strong. It's now sagged quite heavily to mid-tier at best in these previous 2 episodes, and I'm really hoping that it can moonshot the other way around. And just deliver on it. I want to see more Hayden Christensen, and I want to feel like it's Hayden Christensen as well.
Definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with both of what you guys said. I think I'm hoping for the best, and I'm hoping that I do feel that Ewan is there and he does care about it. Like, even when I'm watching it on screen, so I'm hoping that there's a reason for that, as you said, Sean. Like, there's something that happens later on. But yeah, this wasn't. I think what I didn't like about this is that we've been waiting for this moment for ages, and it came, and I was like, oh, it's just a dude standing there with a costume on, fighting against Ewan McGregor in the desert, And I was like, it didn't feel. I've seen fan films that look like that. I don't know. It didn't have the weight. Like you said, we've lost the class of Star Wars. Like this thing would have been a movie. Solo got a movie. This. Why is Kenobi not a movie? It doesn't make any sense to me. We should have just had the Mandalorian, and that was it. Like they've really taken away the what makes Star Wars special. We didn't have these movies for years. Now there's too much of it. I don't know. But yeah, there's that, and there's also
Star Wars is an event.
And it isn't anymore.
No, it isn't at all. I mean, I like some of the character stuff that's happened in that. Like with Kenobi and Leia, I have actually liked that stuff, and like you said, Sean, I thought the first 2 episodes were like decent, but this has concerned me. This has concerned me, and I mean, hopefully they can put it back in the next episode. They still have time, I guess. They still have time, but yeah.
Well, this has been the Full Fat Podcast. Watch Top Gun Maverick in theatres everywhere, and download Sniper out on all digital platforms.